The Daily Jaws 50th Anniversary interview series is a collection of amazing conversations exploring the legacy of Steven Spielberg's screen adaptation of Jaws through the eyes of the fans. We'll be talking to famous fans, shark experts, people whose lives have been changed by the movie, and those that were there that helped to make the film. We'll also be telling you about two amazing organisations that are very close to our hearts. Anyway, that's enough from me. Thank you for listening and enjoy the show.
But that's such a Spielberg thing. That scene right there with Brody and his son. That's such a Spielberg trademark. You know what I mean? He does things like that to kind of bring you in emotionally to the character. For me, it wasn't about the effects in the movie. It was about the story. It was about the characters. It was about the fear of not seeing the shark. If you listen to that, you will hear where John Williams got some of the Jaws theme. Okay, I don't mean to like call him out on it, but when I first heard it, I'm like, that's Jaws. It's movie making at its best. It's storytelling at its best. It's acting at its best. It's a soundtrack that is 50% of the movie.
Hey guys, it's Ross over at the Daily Jaws with another super special 50th anniversary Jaws interview. Today's guest is rock royalty. He's one of the best rock drummers in the world. He normally plays with Anthrax, but he's currently, at the time of recording this interview, on tour with Pantera. He's a massive, massive Jaws fan and a good friend of the Daily Jaws. Guys, please welcome Charlie Benante. How you doing, Charlie?
Yeah. How are you, Ross? Good to see you, man.
Good to see you again, dude. How you been?
I've been great. Been just on tour here with Pantera. We're about halfway into the tour. We're in Germany right now, so we're starting the German run, and then it moves to Brussels, Paris, Italy, and then we finish in the UK.
Lovely jubbly, lovely jubbly. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you. So obviously we're here because it's the 50th anniversary of Jaws, and it's, you know, both of our favorite movie, which is how we've come to sort of know each other over the years.
Yes.
Charlie, when did you first see Jaws, and what do you remember about that?
I saw it with my family like first week or two when it came out. We went down to Manhattan to see it, 86th Street. I remember waiting online, and as we were getting closer to go in, they back in those days, they used to have the lobby pictures, which showed you parts of the movie, you know what I mean? And God, the excitement, I can't even tell you the excitement that I had going to see this movie, because my oldest sister, she turned me on to the book. She read the book, and she's like, they're going to make a movie about it. And she would tell me about it was just, I was so absorbed with that stuff. And then it became my favorite movie of all time.
Nice, nice. What did you think of the book?
I love the book. There's other elements in the book that they got rid of in the movie, of course, like the affair with Hooper and Mrs. Brody, the mafia situation. So I guess they felt they didn't need this for the movie. You know, why tell that story when there's other stories to be told? You know, like the Quint character, of course. That's a big part of this movie. You know.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, you know, I really admire David Brown and Richard Zanuck, who produced Jaws, and they were just very clear that this is going to be, and to paraphrase, an A to Z adventure story, and the star of the movie is a fish. So that's what we're going to focus our story on, and the mafia and everything else. It might work for the book, but for this movie and this way we're going to tell the story, no. And I think the movie was better for it. You touched on Quint there for a moment. I mean, who is your favorite character in Jaws if you had to choose one?
Wow, that's a tough one because the three of them, each one of them have a presence in the movie that is very important. And it's hard for me to decide. It's like saying, "Who's your favorite Beatle?" I can't do that either. But I guess I have a soft. I guess if I had to pick one, you know, one of those things,
Yeah.
I think it would be Brody. Because I want to say I kind of relate to him the most.
Mm.
My fear of
Well,
water, his fear of water,
ah,
you know, stuff that he was going through. You know, he's a father, he's a husband. You know, I mean, he's got a lot of these elements that the other two didn't have.
mm,
Um, so for me, he's trying to keep it all together. Plus, he's the chief on this island, you know, and he's trying to keep it together for the people on the island.
mm,
And he's trying to keep it together on the boat because those two are going at it.
mm.
So I feel like that's a lot of my role in the band. I'm trying to keep it all together when stuff is going on. So I'd have to say Brody.
You know what? I would agree with you at this age. I'm 45, and I agree with you. At the moment, I feel closest to Brody, but my sort of journey with the characters since watching this movie has been quite different. Because when I first saw the movie, I loved the sharks. Although I wanted to just see the shark, and even though I was a youngster, I didn't even realize how little the shark was on screen. It was in my mind from the second you put the movie on. So I was obviously a Hooper fan because I was like, I loved his curiosity and his energy and his fascination by these sharks, that kind of stuff. And then as you grow up, you get a little bit older, you go through a few things. You know, life throws you a few challenges. You get maybe a couple of scars here and there. I started to affiliate a bit more with Quint, and I was just like, wow, I kind of understand what it must be like to carry trauma, not obviously to that level, but trauma. And as you pick up these scars through life, and now I've got a godson and some goddaughters. I don't have children of my own, and but I feel much more sort of duty bound, and protective and to look after them. And I
Uh,
think that's again what Brody kind of demonstrates. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to. And I think the turning point in the story for Brody is when the shark sort of encounters his son, then it becomes personal. And you've got that wonderful shot of him looking out to the ocean, realizing I need to go out and fight this shark and deal with this problem on its terms and just hope that I'm brave enough or have what it takes to deal with it, even if Quentin Hooper can't do it, which ends up being the case. So yeah, I agree with you, man. I think Brody is probably the guy I identify with the most at the moment.
the thing about Brody is like he goes into this for, you know, it's his charter. You know what I mean? And he thinks he's running the show.
Mm,
As when he gets there, he finds out that he's not in charge of this thing at all. You
yeah.
know, Quint has taken over, and Hooper, for the most part, in his mind, I think he thinks, "Well, I got the thing that's going to do it." You know what I mean?
Mm, yeah.
But then when it comes down to Hooper actually doing it, they look at it and they're like, "Are you fucking crazy? This is how you're going to do it?" So
Mm,
he fails, and then who ends up doing it? It's Brody.
yeah.
You know what I mean? And you know, it's like for me, it's like I think we all knew that Brody had it in him, but we didn't know exactly how it was
Mm,
going to happen. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it gets away from Brody, you know, quite a bit on that
Yeah.
boat, you know,
Yeah.
and then he starts to panic. You know,
Mm,
we got to go back. You know, just like I would have just panicked too. Take me back now. You know,
yeah.
so um, I can relate to Brody.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely, and this is one of the things that I love when I talk to different people about Jaws. I mean, myself and Joe Lutrulio had a fantastic conversation about not just the characters but also the wider themes of Jaws in terms of politics and authority and governance, because obviously politics plays a part in Jaws as well. And when people ask me why am I so fascinated about this movie, why do I always find something new to talk about it? It's because it always comes back to those characters. They're so well cast, so well played, and you can look at the movie through different lenses and different viewpoints very clearly. So, like, I remember one of the first times I watched Jaws, the first thing I wanted to do was obviously rewatch it because it was the best thing I'd ever seen. But I wanted to watch it again and watch Quint very closely, because when you watch Jaws for the second time and you focus a bit more on Quint, from the second he starts that fantastic monologue in a town hall, you look at it in a slightly different way. You look at him as a guy who's carrying something. He's carrying a weight of something, whether that's PTSD, survivor's guilt, whatever it is. And this is his opportunity to maybe put some ghosts to rest, to inflict some damage on a shark that he feels that doesn't deserve to exist, whatever that looks like. And yet other people will go, it's just a story about a fish. And you're like, it's really not. It's so much more. And I think one of the things that you said there really clicked in my mind, where you said we always kind of knew Brody had it in him, but we weren't sure how it was going to do it, how it was going to turn out. And I think Jaws is one of the best whether it's a movie, book, whatever medium, it's one of the best examples of asking the question, do you have what it takes when the time comes? And if you believe in yourself and you put fear aside, you probably do. So believe in yourself. And that's always
Mm.
been a sort of running theme through Spielberg stuff. So for me, it's a very uplifting film. And I think that's one of the other reasons why people go back to that film. It's like I think Joe's described it as an old friend. And I'm just like, yeah, that's exactly why.
The thing about that movie too is that I'll say this in the I've always loved Jaws, and anyone who knows me will say, since they've known me, they know that this has been my all-time number one favorite movie. But for
Mm,
the people who made the movie, there was a long time when I felt, like, embarrassed by Steven Spielberg's comments about Jaws because he wasn't the biggest Jaws fan.
mm,
He would always kind of discredit it, and then I think. Once everybody started to realize that this was movie making at its best and the character
mm,
development was so good that Spielberg had to go and rewatch it and then kind of understand, like, he had to get rid of that, oh god, I hate this movie type thing, I hated making it. And then once
mm,
that all cleared and he got rid of it, he flushed
mm.
it, he saw it for this piece of this film, and but anyway, yeah. Again, it's one of the best movies ever made.
It is. And again, sort of just thinking about things from Spielberg's point of view, it must be really a strange relationship because obviously that I mean he in an interview, this was a little while ago, and I can't remember where it was, but I know I'm right. He basically said the three toughest movies he's made without a doubt are Saving Private Ryan, Ready Player One, and Jaws, for all of the very different reasons, but they're all technically very complex movies in their own right. But ultimately, you look at that, and that's the first time that he's had to really make a really difficult movie that wasn't always on his terms. Obviously, he made it the way he wanted to in terms of the shark. He said, "We're not going to use tanks. We're not going to use green screen, or we're not going to do miniatures or anything like that. We're going to do this full size out on the ocean with a physical prop." And which is just insane to think about it. But obviously, it was the best move possible, and it opened the doors to so many other effects movies, Star Wars and things like that indirectly.
Oh,
But when
absolutely.
do you know what I mean? But when you look back at the relationship, you think, well, this is something that I absolutely hated and took me nearly a year of my life, just over a year of my life to make. And I didn't really get a huge amount of recognition at the time for it. He was snubbed for an Oscar, like he wasn't even recognized, even though everyone knew how talented he was. And he'd made this incredible movie. But I think what it was is maybe the industry indirectly turning on itself in one way, because obviously it's this big, massive blockbuster, but something that has that much mass appeal and changes the industry can't be also a great piece of art at the same time. The two don't correlate.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think so.
Exactly. And I think he suffered from that until it became a time when they couldn't ignore his art and what he was doing.
Mm,
Just because something sells 15 million copies doesn't make it, not a good piece of art. Because when you're making something, you have no idea what it's going to do. No
mm,
one has a crystal ball. What they're doing is they're making the best piece of art that they could possibly make due to their surroundings.
mm,
And let's face it, Steven Spielberg didn't know that if you put this thing in salt water, it's going to damage all the mechanics inside of it. You know what I mean?
mm,
Who knew this? But he had to film it in the ocean because how could it look if it wasn't filmed in the ocean? And
mm,
when I finally went to Martha's Vineyard back in 92, 93,
mm.
nobody knew anything about Jones. There was no landmarks like, oh, you could go here. You could go. I had to find them all myself. And when I found them, it felt like that scene when the kitten boy gets killed and Brody, that Alfred Hitchcock camera shot that kind of
Yeah, the
pans into
dolly
him.
zoom.
That,
Yeah.
that's how I felt when I would find little landmarks of where Jaws was filmed. And it was so great. No one knew anything. And the kid Jeffrey Voorhees, who played Alex Kittner, was the manager at this restaurant, and they
Mm,
had the Alex Kittner burger on the menu, and I was
that's
like,
it.
yes, finally,
Something Jaws.
something Jaws.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So I want to obviously you being a rock god that we all know that you are. We obviously do need to talk about the music. However, I just need to pause just for 1 second. Would you mind just waiting just for 1 second? There's just something I need to do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no problem.
Charlie, Charlie, you're under arrest. You're not syncopating with the police.
Oh my God, that's amazing, dude. That just
Hey,
made my
Charlie, I think we met years and years ago at Chiller. You,
Yes,
you
that's
know,
right.
it's one of the first ones I ever did, and you were like the first heavy metal guys I think I ever met.
In New Jersey.
Yeah, in Jersey. Yeah,
Wow. How
for
are
sure.
you?
I'm good. How are you? I love that you love this movie, man. And in all your bios, it always talks about your love of Jaws. It's very
Always.
cool. You and Jeremy X. Wagner.
Yes, Jeremy. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, it's a movie that has stand the test of time with us. And like when we would be on tour, we'd always have movie night, and Jaws would always
That's
be
yeah, yeah,
that's it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then we'd watch it again as if it was the first time. But
How
yeah,
old,
I love
how old were you
Jaws
when you
2 as
saw it?
well.
How old were you when you first saw
Oh
it?
man, I don't know. It came out in '75, so what was I,
Yeah.
10 at that time?
Who
Maybe
took
around
you? Who took you?
10.
Your parents?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I have four oldest sisters, and my
Oh
oldest sister,
my
she
God.
read the book
I
and she
get it.
turned me on to it. And we saw it at the 86th Street Playhouse in Manhattan.
Oh, the
And
Translux up there, or whatever it was called. I remember it up in Yorkville. Yeah.
that's and I was never the same after that movie. But thank
Geez,
you.
none of us ever swam the same again.
Never,
None of us ever
never.
swam.
Let me ask you this: what was it like just doing this movie? You know?
We thought they were going to pull the plug. Every time, they shut out all the cover right away, the cover sets, because it was raining and. So my part kept getting a little bit bigger because they had nothing to shoot. The shark would come up, look ferocious, and then like pass out. It never worked. It didn't work. That's why you don't see it as much, which actually helps. But we thought they were going to pull the plug. It was like this perfect creative storm, where in the final mix, everything came together. Who knew? Who knew? We thought
Oh,
we thought
yeah.
nobody will ever see this movie.
Do you think Verna Fields played a big part,
Big,
editing this movie
you
together?
bet. She made a big difference. That whole scene where Ben Gardner's head comes out of the boat? That was an insert shot done in her swimming pool. And she
I
was
love
the
it.
warmest, nicest lady in the world. I mean, she took all of us under her wings. They used to call her the mother cutter because she was
Mother
like a
Cutter,
mom
yeah.
to us. It was unbelievable. This has been my treat. Thank you.
Oh, dude,
Thanks
this
for
is the greatest
sharing,
thing right
Charlie.
now.
I thank you for
Oh, thank
letting me
you.
hijack your podcast here. I appreciate
Oh, it was a
you.
great. It was a great surprise, and I
Oh,
love it.
good.
And
Oh, I'm so glad you made my day, kid.
Good
Thanks.
man.
All right.
Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey.
Bye,
We'll see
you
you again
guys.
soon.
thanks, Jeff.
Take care,
All
mate.
right.
Bye
Bye,
bye.
you guys.
Hey guys, it's Ross. I hope you're enjoying this week's episode. Bruce and I just wanted to take a moment to tell you about a couple of the organisations that we've been working with and also some of the new products you can find in our store. Minorities in Shark Sciences, or MISS for short. A non-profit founded in 2020 that champions diversity in shark, ray and marine sciences. MISS creates equitable opportunities for historically underrepresented communities through hands-on programs and believes that diverse scientists bring diverse ideas, driving the innovation essential for ocean conservation. Representation matters, and MISS is making sure the next generation sees a place for themselves in marine biology. Learn more and support their mission at missalesmo.org. The mission of the Tourette Association of America is to provide help and hope to those affected by Tourette syndrome, tic disorders, and associated conditions through awareness, research, and support. It's the only national organisation serving the community and works to raise awareness, advance research, and provide ongoing support to patients and families impacted by Tourette syndrome and tic disorders. To this end, the Tourette Association of America directs a network of 31 chapters 83 support groups, and recognises 18 centres of excellence across the country. It's a non-profit organisation and is extremely close to the heart of not just Jeffrey Kramer, but also his family. The Daily Jaws store is home to some of the world's most exciting Jaws products, including screen-accurate barrels and tanks, a chalkboard shark shadowcaster, a yellow barrel koozie, an orca transom and 3 yellow barrel keychains, and much more. Visit store.thedailyjaws.com. For non-US orders, please email orders@thedailyjaws.com. Thanks for listening. Now back to the show.
That was awesome.
Yeah, he does that. He just sort of gate crashes interviews. So yeah, no, we've been planning it. We've been planning it. We wanted to surprise you. So yeah, good. I'm glad you enjoyed that. So we obviously, as we know, you are a professional musician, and the music in Jaws, it's such a massive part of not just the movie, but the franchise and also cinematic landscape. You know, as soon as you hear the Jaws music, chills. You know exactly what this means. What do you think about the music in Jaws? Not just the theme, but the whole musical journey we're taking on.
Okay, so I listen to the Jaws soundtrack constantly, especially on the airplanes and stuff like that. I love everything on that soundtrack. Now, here's something that that maybe a lot of people don't know, but the Rites of Spring from Stravinsky.
Mm-hmm.
If you listen to that, you will hear where John Williams got some of the Jaws theme. Okay, I don't mean to like call him out on it, but when I first heard it, I'm like, that's Jaws. Wow, it's incredible. Doesn't make me love it any less, but I love when like myself, anyone could tell that I'm influenced by this type of music or that type of music, and you could hear it within our music. So the same goes for John Williams, going back to his past. You know what I mean? Like the stuff that he grew up with listening to. John has a huge. I'm calling him John as if I know him. A huge jazz background, but also a very classical background. And I've seen John Williams perform three times now. He did A Night at the Movies, and when he would do those Jaws songs, I was watching everyone in the orchestra like, that's how that sound. That's where that sound comes from. Oh wow, that's who you know. And when you hear that, dun, 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 and you hear it coming off the stage, it's just incredible. You know what I mean? But John Williams knew this would do it. This would put fear into people.
But I think you're right. I think, you know, that Jaws theme. I mean, there's a whole buffet of perfect music on that particular soundtrack, and also the Jaws 2 soundtrack, which I think is equally good, if not even better in terms of the ingenuity. But the Jaws theme itself, it is literally like a heartbeat of the shark, isn't it? No, the instinction, it's going into hunting mode as it's speeding up and about to take its prey and everything else, but it's instantly recognizable. And I've been to a few concerts, not with John Williams actually performing, but sort of like a John Williams tribute kind of thing, with some really great musicians. The one that stood out with the audience every single time was the Jaws one, because it starts off so slowly and it's just those two notes and you instantly know what it is, and automatically you get that little giggle in the audience, and then all of a sudden it starts to ramp up and you're thinking, I'm scared now, I'm terrified, and I'm not even watching the movie, I'm just listening to the music. And it's incredible to think that something like that is so effective. I mean, there's a movie called The Holiday, which Jack Black is in, and there's a scene when he goes to, I can't remember which one he takes. It's Kate Winslet or Cameron Diaz, I think. One of them. He takes them to a video shop, and he just takes them through a series of movies and stuff. He goes, how about this one? How about that one? And he picks up Jaws and he goes, two notes and you have
got a villain.
And it's like, absolutely, because the shark isn't even on screen for at least an hour, possibly an hour and 20 minutes, depending on which. Well, actually, I'll ask you that question. When do you think we first see the shark in Jaws? Because there's two trains of thought on it, but when do you think we first see the shark?
Isn't it the Teddy Grossman part in the estuary?
Well, some people would agree with you, some people wouldn't. But I think that's probably when we first see the shark in terms of its head and and the glimpse. But I think the
Oh
first
yeah,
proper look is the bigger boat moment because you're just like, oh my God, that's huge. Because you see it compared to a boat, you're just like, yeah, that's massive. Yeah. But there's two trains of
yeah.
thought
But
on that
I'm gonna say you see the shark for the first time in the
in the
estuary.
estuary. Yeah. All right, fair
That's
enough.
one of the scariest parts of the movie for me.
Terrifying because you're not expecting it. It cuts away, and then all of a sudden, bang! It cuts back to him, and the shark is out of the water. And you're like, it's a really startling moment. It's very very scary.
That's the part that scared me the most, I think, because he's
Really?
trying to get back on the little boat, and because okay, so the thing is, knowing everything now, what was supposed to happen was he's supposed to grab Brody's son,
Yes, that's right.
and
There's a different version.
as the shark is dragging him, he grabs Brody's son. Why I don't
Mm,
know.
mm,
And there's pictures of it too because it was shot.
mm. Yeah, it was.
That to me would have been so terrifying. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But but yeah, I think that's the first time you actually see the shark. Um,
yeah.
but that part terrified me
Yeah,
when I
I
was
was talking
younger.
about this. I think for me, it's still probably one of the most intense, if not the most intense, sequences in cinema where you've got the shark coming towards the rowing boat, and all we can see is just the tip of the fin, but the break of the water, and we know what's coming. We know this is going to
Oh
happen,
yeah.
and no one is aware of it. And all of a sudden, okay, the boat goes over, and then the next thing you see that nightmare fuel shot of the shark on its side under the water, and it's a
Ooh,
brilliant use of water, and obviously the estuary victim slips underneath under the water, and then the next thing you know, he's getting chomped on the arm, and then his legs falling off, and you're just like, this is a PG. Like, how did Jaws get to be a PG? I will never know. But I'm just like, this is incredible. But it's a fantastic way of demonstrating the power and ferocity of this animal. And then you put a character that hates the water and is terrified out there to face it. Genius. Genius.
genius. Yeah. When the kid gets killed, you see a blurred version of the shark too.
Yeah, because they roll over. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, that's the maybe the first time you're actually, but you don't really see the shark. It's almost like a silhouette, you know,
Well,
of
I've actually done a video of this on YouTube. When do we first see the shark in Jaws? And I look at each kind of moment. And there's arguments for all of it. I mean, you could technically say that that might be the first moment. I actually thought I saw the tip, some of the shark during the Chrissy attack moment when I was younger, but I thought that was her, and I thought her shoulder was the top of the shark's
the
head.
shoulder was, yeah.
Yeah, and then I realized how they did it with the cables. There was no shark at that point at all. So I was just like, oh, that's disappointing because that would have been amazing effects of the 70s. But you're right.
Yeah.
So there's lots of little, and this is why I love Jaws as well, and particularly the community, because you ask questions like this and everyone's got a slightly different answer. And we'll all very friendly argue it out. But ultimately, you decide what you take from that movie in terms of those moments and those things and whatever. So I think Jaws is a very personal movie for a lot of people as well.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
so you talked about your scariest moment, but do you have a favorite moment in the movie?
Um, wow, there's so many favorite moments. I love the scene when Hooper comes over to dinner. Uh, I would love to ask them how much improv that was, you know?
Mm,
Because he brings two bottles. He brings a red and white. You know, he doesn't know what they're serving, and then he sees the plate that Brody apparently is not going to eat because he's just so. I just want to drink tonight. I don't want to. And you know, Hooper, being kind of who he is, he's like, "Is anybody eating this?" You know, and I just think that is some of the you know, it's just some of the greatest acting in a, you
mm,
know, in a table where you got Brody here, who's the center of it, and everybody's worried about Brody,
yeah.
and his wife is trying to make conversation, even though it's awkward conversation, and Hooper's just like doesn't really know her, so he's just like being cool. Meanwhile, they're having an affair. No, they're not having an affair. And Brody is just drinking, and he's just not going to stand for any bullshit. He's just
Mm,
serious. But yeah, that's one of my. I think that's such a great moment, and one of
mm.
my favorite moments.
I like the same scene, but the moment before that, before Brody, sorry, before
Well,
Hooper turns up, which is when obviously Brody is just sitting there contemplating the day, and he's doing various gestures, all this kind of stuff, and he looks over and obviously his little boy is copying him, which we've all done, whether you're son and a daughter, whatever it is, you always copy your
Hmm.
parents. You play that game. And for me personally, that's just probably my favorite moment in the movie. I mean, obviously the Indianapolis speech. Well, actually, Jaws is just a classic moment after classic moment for 2 hours, 4 minutes. But obviously, in terms of acting, the Indianapolis speech is very, very, and rightly so, revered. But for me, this beautiful personal little moment where this guy who's the chief of police, he's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he knows he's made the wrong decision, and he's turning to the bottle, turns to his 2, 3 year old kid, and he's just like, "Give us a kiss." Why? Because I need it. I don't know
Yeah.
anybody in the world who doesn't relate to that in any part. I guess then that kind of goes back to maybe what we were talking about before about, as you go through life, you go through stuff, and every now and again you just need something from someone, whether that's a little peck on the cheek from your boy, a hug, whatever it is. And again, that's why Jaws for me is just like that great, great movie. And I know a lot of people
But that,
share that moment as well.
but that's such a Spielberg thing. That scene right there with Brody and his son. That's such a
Mm,
Spielberg trademark. You know what I mean? He does
mm,
things like that to kind of bring you in emotionally
mm.
to the character, and of course when when they're back on the beach and you find out that his son is in the pond, it just all connects.
Yeah,
It's a very
yeah.
emotional thing. It's like Michael's in the pond. You know what I mean?
Mm,
And it's like that's what he's trying to protect. He's trying to protect his family, and he's trying to protect everyone on the island. And I
mm.
think that's why the Brody is just so. And I always felt in Jaws too, they just came down on Brody so hard. It's like, wait a minute, didn't he just save all your asses? And now you're kind of, trying to stab him in the back. So it's just that's why
Mm.
I didn't really like Jaws 2 so much. It was very there's too many holes in that movie.
Did you get a chance to see the interview series that we did for the Jaws 2 40th anniversary?
Hmm.
Did you see the one with Jeannot, the final director of the film? Very, very briefly, John D. Hancock was the original director for Jaws 2. He wrote the script with his wife, and he was going to direct it. And he was on, I think, it was on the picture for about 4 weeks, something like that, but about a year of pre-production. And for whatever reason, it didn't work. And he had a much darker, grittier version of Jaws 2, which I was actually very curious to see. Anyway,
Hmm.
John D. Hancock got fired. They brought in Jeannot, which I think was actually at Jeffrey's suggestion because they worked together on some TV. And Jeannot told me that he had 1 week to prep. 1 week,
Ooh.
and they were basically very much like Jaws, but for very different reasons. They kind of had a story, but they didn't have a shark in the first one. This one they had a shark, but they didn't have a story. So they were kind of flipping it out, and there was a real need for the studio to try and sort of basically make the franchise work and make it the biggest sequel of all time, which it was at the time when it came out. But they were trying to cash in on the sort of the teen slasher angle as well. But also, what I think was interesting, and even though Roy Scheider hated being there, and the other actors have been very vocal about this and very open and going, he did not want to be there. I still think he was very good, and I think he channeled that anger because when I look at Brody and Jaws 2, it's like it's almost like an echo of Quint. Like he's been through a traumatic experience at with a shark. He's seen someone get eaten before his eyes. Brody, he saw Quint get taken. He doesn't want to go through that hell again, and he's carrying his own trauma. For the same reason, and he's sort of battling that. But obviously, we know from the previous movie he's got a problem with alcohol, and he comes back drunk, and it's just like, my God, this guy's going through it again. And I'm thinking, well, this is going in a very interesting place. But then they sort of have to pivot to the kids' story, and I'm just like, oh. So they kind of got it half right, but then not quite right. Do you know what I mean? I was like, it could have been a bit more interesting, but they did the best they could in the time that they had. I mean, if anybody that's wanting to know a bit more about Jaws 2 and hear the stories firsthand, just search Jaws 2 in 45th anniversary series, and you'll see, I think it was 9 interviews with the cast and the directors and the writers involved, and you'll just get a better idea of kind of basically what the full story was. But yeah, I mean, as sequels go, well, actually, what do you think of the sequels? Obviously, you say you've sort of spoken about Jaws 2. What do you think about Jaws 3D and Jaws the Revenge?
Jaws 3D is my least favorite out of the franchise. And if you could believe that I didn't like that as if you can believe that Jaws 4 is still rated better than Jaws 3, which dude, for me, I'll always have the original. And as much as I want to like Jaws 2 because of the same people in it and characters,
Mm,
I I just didn't like it. I don't like the shark in it. I thought that
mm,
it was stupid for them to burn the shark. It just looks so hokey, and There were scenes in that movie that I hated. The shark, the side of the shark when it's coming on the boat caves in, and
Mm.
it, it again, if Jaws one was it, I'd be so happy. But I know as far as franchises go, you want to continue to keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. Universal, but it wasn't my favorite. Either one of them weren't, some of my favorite movies. And I'm
I,
sorry, but
Well, the thing is, one of the things that we've talked about and some of the other interviews that we've done is that when we look back at, say, the original Jaws, obviously it's a perfect movie. And when you look at it, almost quite an impossible premise if you put the shark first rather than the characters. And what the sequel seems to do is put the shark first and then the characters second. And they're almost like um, bait for the shark. They're literally like a slasher movie. They're just there to be eaten kind of thing. And a lot of people don't even recognize the Jaws sequels as actually Jaws movies. It's just like you've got Jaws, and then you've got that. They are not. They are not the same. They're not to be associated. They're not even semi-related, even though that they've carried like the Brody name through all four movies and all this kind of stuff. It's just like okay. Although I will tell you something very interesting or quite funny about Jaws: The Revenge. Have you read the novelizations of Jaws 2 and Jaws: The
uh-uh.
Revenge? Okay, I'm going to try and find a copy of it and see if I can publish it without getting sued. But there's a chapter in Jaws: The Revenge novelization that is actually from the point of view of the shark. Yeah, it's absolutely insane. They try to talk about like the voodoo curse or whatever it is that's sort of like driving the shark to travel and follow the Brodies, and there's actually a chapter from the shark's point of view, and I'm like, this is brilliant. So that's the only good thing about the Legacy of Jaws: The Revenge, and the raw at the end because shark's really raw now apparently.
Well, I mean,
Funny film, funny film.
look, you had the same producers, doing Jaws too. You had
Mm,
some of the same actors that were gonna, were recasted to do Jaws too, but you didn't have one important element in that. There was no Steven Spielberg.
yeah,
Um, and then without him, I don't think it happens. So the magic
yeah.
didn't happen on screen for that movie because of what they had to work with, and they probably didn't have enough time to really prep or get a really good script. It's like, oh, it's good enough.
Mm,
People will come just because it's Jaws. You know what I mean?
exactly.
No,
Yeah, and that's what happens. I mean, what happened to that Spielberg guy? What happened to him? Did he do all right? I think he did okay, didn't he, in
I
the
don't
end?
think so. I don't know. You don't hear anything about him later.
Nah, weird guy.
I know.
Um, so this is a question that I really enjoy. I've really enjoyed asking all of the guests that have participated in the series so far because the answers have always been quite different. If Jaws isn't about a fish, what is it about?
Wow, it's about a lot of things actually. It's about three lives that come together, you know, never thought they would ever be in this situation. And I think it's about three people actually learning about other people who it's like, wow, this man was on the Indianapolis. This man was a police officer back in Manhattan. You come from a rich family and you study sharks,
Mhm.
So it was just like, how do I relate to these people? And it's so much like life. How do we relate to each other? And, we all come from different walks and stuff. And
Mhm.
it's funny because being on tour for us, we're thrown together in the same kind of, environment that they were. We're not trying to kill a shark, but we have different walks of life. We work this, we come from this part of the world, So it's funny how Brody was. I wouldn't say he was afraid of Quint, but there was a level of this guy is kind of like he says he's certifiable,
Mm.
because Quint did have. I think Quint had a screw loose because of what he went through.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
So I think the three of them enter together. They're not sure of each other. I mean, I think Brody made friends with Hooper quickly,
Mm.
because of Quint. Like, we better become allies because this guy is a fucking crazy motherfucker. And then
Mm,
what happens at the end of the movie? They all have this feeling of we lost Quint. You know what I mean? They didn't really know him that long, but
mm,
what they, if it wasn't for that one night, talking and finding out about each other, um, I see that's a very important Spielberg thing that he does. That scene right there connected it all together
mm,
and made the audience watch it and be like, I like Quint, you know?
mm.
Because you think he's this horrible person, but he's not.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think it's another piece of genius. It's Quint's salvation or redemption. He's not even alive for it because obviously the moment when Hooper comes back up out of the water at the end, swims across to Brody and it's just like, Quint? And he goes, no. And you can see that look in Hooper's face. It's just like, that's actually a real shame because we might not have known him, but we understood him. Now we understand him.
Mhm.
And, we could have maybe not been best friends, but there was a connection, there was a bond there in that moment. And, it's a shame when you see characters like that, or actually, no, it's not a shame. It's cinematic genius because it's just, it underpins like, what Brody's trying to do, which is legacy. Because obviously when he goes back to the island, he wants to be able to tell his wife, his kids, you're safe, you're good, and so's the town.
Yeah,
Daddy took care of it, and it's showing
yeah.
what's possible when you step up and you take on the challenge and do it in the right way. So yeah, it's definitely not about a fish. Okay, so talking of fish. I've got some. Yeah, see that segue? That's beautiful, isn't it? I've got some controversial questions, but before I ask you the controversial questions, when it comes to sharks, are you on the fearful side, or are you on the fascinated side, or are you somewhere in between?
Uh, can I be in the middle? I'm fascinated by them. For the longest time, to me, they were the scariest things. When I was younger.
Mm,
Um, and then, of course, they have things like Shark Week now, and you start to understand, more and more about them, and
mm,
it's fascinating.
yeah, yeah,
So I'm not as scared of them as I once was.
yeah. But I guess that's kind of like the Quint answer, isn't it? It's like the more you understand it, the less fearful you are. So, yeah, awesome. Yeah, I like that. Brilliant. Okay, so are you
Yeah.
ready for a few controversial questions? Okay. So the first question is, you can save one character in Jaws. It's either Chrissy, Pippet, Alex, Ben Gardner, the estuary victim, or Quint. Who are you saving and why?
This is a tough one because there's only two that I really cared about.
Mhm.
Quint, of course, it would have been nice if Quint had survived, but Quint was becoming crazy before that. When he was
Mhm.
on a mission that he was going to either take all the other two guys down with him, or he was going to get this shark. So he was on a mission.
Mhm.
Um, it was sad watching him die, but the way he died, oh, awesome. It was such a great scene.
Yeah.
Getting eaten by the shark, and oh, it's the best. So if I was going to save any of them, I would have to say Quint because I grew
All
to
right.
like him.
Yeah. All right. You're the first person to give a different answer. Everyone else has said the same person, but I'm not going to say who it was. Okay, next question. Did Pippet live or die? Because we don't actually
Die,
see him get eaten. Yeah, you sure?
died.
He definitely died.
In my
Okay.
mind, in my mind, he died because he's looking for him on the beach. Where's the dog? You don't see the dog again. They
Hmm.
imply that just as the stick is floating in the water. Um,
Mm,
yeah, I'm assuming
okay.
the dog is dead.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you a little secret. Um,
Please,
the full answer is no one really knows. I assume that he died. However, I was researching this question and I produced a video on YouTube. It's about 5 minutes long. And there's a brilliant, brilliant shot of the moment just after the estuary victim has been taken and Michael Brody is being brought to shore. And the shark is sort of swimming underneath the bridge. And Brody is running towards the camera and he jumps over the
I
bridge.
know. Yep.
There's a black Labrador on the bridge.
We don't know if that's just continuity or we don't know if it's
I
the
know.
dog.
Exactly.
But
I
there's
personally, I personally think he's died, but God, it'd be good if he lived,
Me
wouldn't
too. It would be
it?
great.
Okay, now this question. Oh man, so this has caused arguments. Why didn't they take Hooper's boat?
Oh, well, it's obvious because Quint wouldn't let that happen. It's his vessel. It had to be Quint's boat. Had to be. Although I did like Hooper's boat. It was state of the art. Um, but it had to be Quint's boat. That's it. That
That's
that's
it.
that's the answer. That's
All
it.
right.
It
Okay.
would be no movie. There would be no third act if it wasn't for the orca.
Mm, okay. Um, Now this isn't necessarily so controversial, but I always like the answers to this. Jaws is obviously one of those classic movies. I mean, it's revered and looked back upon as the thing that not just, lifted the and elevated the craft of filmmaking, but gave us the summer blockbuster and Steven Spielberg and so forth. But do you think Jaws could be remade or rebooted today? I mean, it's been 50 years, now would be a good time, right? Or not? What do you
Well,
think?
I mean, of course they can. They can do that. They can do anything, and of course it would be um, the effects. Of course, would be perfect. You know what I
Mm,
mean? But for me, it wasn't about the effects in the movie. It was about the story. It was about the characters. It was about the fear of not
mm,
seeing the shark. So if you
mm,
see a movie like Deep Blue Sea, where you see
mm.
the sharks moving at this great pace, I don't remember that. Um, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, of course you could remake the movie, but it's never going to hold a candle to the original. Just won't.
Mm. I think you've identified two of the biggest problems. One, Spielberg probably wouldn't make it, and two, how can you possibly replace that cast of three lead characters? They're just perfect. They are the gateway into that story, and that's what makes us keep going back to Amity and wanting to revisit the same story over and over and over again.
And
Um,
nobody's asking for it. Here's the thing: when another generation or two discovers our music, um, it's new music to them.
mm,
Okay, so when someone reaches the age of they're watching movies and their parents let them watch a movie like Jaws because it may be too intense for younger viewers,
mm,
that's a new movie. It's a new
mm,
movie to them.
yeah,
So I often question, well, we want to reach a newer audience, so just re-release it. You know what I mean? Like
mm,
it's storytelling at its best. It's movie making at its best. This is what you want people to see. You don't want them to
mm.
see some new version of it with great effects and everything like that. I think that's the problem with movie making nowadays. They ruin everything.
It's a really good point, and I don't know if the same happened in the US, but in the UK, Jaws was re-released in theaters, and it was re-released in IMAX, and it was re-released in 3D. And I was very concerned about the 3D version because I'm just like, why are we 3Ding Jaws? But I did the double. I went to watch it at the BFI in London, which is the biggest screen. I think it's the biggest IMAX screen in Europe, I think. And I went to see it, and it was amazing to see the movie on that scale with that sound system was brilliant. I mean, the music was just incredible. But also
Yeah,
then I went to watch it at my local cinema in the same day in the evening for the 3D version. The 3D conversion was fantastic. I've got to say, like, it really brought certain aspects of the movie to life, particularly the part when the orca is sinking and it's just right there. The pulpit is right there in front of you. But the thing that was common about both performances is you could see people bringing in people who hadn't seen the movie before. And a lot of them were kids. So parents bringing their kids to see this movie for the first time. The kids were screaming when they were supposed to scream. They were laughing when they were supposed to laugh, and they were cheering at the end. It was just like, yes, there was an elation there that
yeah.
Brody got the shark. And I'm like, this is almost like being back at 1975. And I think that's the true power and the testimony of that movie, because if it can play 45 years later and still get the same reaction from kids who have been used to this diet of effects driven popcorn
Desensitized.
blockbuster. Yeah, and they go back and they really connect with these characters. I mean, when you think of these monster movies now, I mean, one of my favorite movies of the last couple of years has been Godzilla minus one. which I think is a brilliant film. And there's a bit where the Godzilla, sorry, spoilers fans, by the way, if you haven't seen it, but do see it. There's a bit obviously where Godzilla's obviously in the water. They're chucking mines into the water. They're trying to blow him up. When that bit happened, there was this guy who was sitting at the back and he went, "That's fucking Jaws." And I went,
Jaws.
"Yes,
Yeah.
it is, dude. Yes, it is."
Yeah.
But almost beat for beat, it is almost like a remake of Jaws. It's actually, it
But they
lasts
did that.
exactly the same length as well.
They did that purposely, though. It wasn't, it was
I,
a surprise.
they
It was an
definitely,
homage.
yeah, they definitely took a lot of inspiration from Jaws, or if they didn't, it's a massive coincidence, or it's subconsciously influenced the filmmakers. Whatever, not trying to call anybody out, but when you look at the two, they are very, very, very similar. Um, okay, so Charlie, we're getting to the end of it. I mean, this has been fantastic. I guess my question is to round up is what do you think is the legacy of this movie? I mean, why are we sat here talking about it 50 years later?
Well, it's because like Roy Scheider says in the documentary, it's that primal fear. We all love going to the beach. We love going into the water. We love all these
Mm.
things. And Spielberg, what he did was completely ruined it for us, because we never knew what was underneath us. And now we have a picture in our minds of what could be lurking.
Mm.
Um, and that's the thing about it. That he put that fear into us. There's no music playing, of course, but we imagine what we want to imagine.
Mm.
And again, besides that, like I said earlier, it's movie making at its best. It's storytelling at its best. It's acting at its best. It's a soundtrack that is 50% of the movie. Without the soundtrack, I don't know if Jaws is as intense as it is.
Mm.
And that's the truth. I mean,
Mm.
I don't think anybody will say differently. Um,
Mm.
it's just a perfect movie. And if the shark did work, maybe it wouldn't be as perfect.
I sort of describe it as the movie where all the right things went wrong because the shark not
Yeah, yeah.
working, the shark not working meant that the actors had more time to workshop their characters and they had more time to develop the script and all of these kind of things. And it also forced the actors, sorry, the filmmakers to be very innovative in not just not getting the shark to work, but also just trying not to show too much of the shark and work around, arguably one of the greatest special effects ever made. I mean, they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this thing and they show it for 4 minutes. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. But it changed the movie industry. It absolutely changed
Change the
everything.
movie industry.
It really did.
And so before we end this interview, I have a question
Mm,
for you as well about Jaws. Okay.
please.
Um, I have two questions for you. The first one is Quint in his pocket keeps crackers, or I'm assuming he keeps crackers because he'll go in, take a bite out of it, and then he puts it back in his pocket. Does he have an assortment of crackers in there? Are they crackers? What are they? The second question is, what happens to Quint's chair on the boat? Where does it go? You don't see it again. Did they throw it overboard? What happens to the chair?
Those are two really good questions. So, with the crackers, I've never been asked that question quite like that before. I think what it is because I think he only eats when he's fishing, doesn't he? That's when we see him with the crackers, right? Or when he's sitting down because he bites a bit in the town hall, doesn't he? And when he's in the fighting chair, getting ready to potentially catch the shark. So I think maybe it might just be something that he does that he's used to doing when he's sitting down because maybe he spends a lot of time sitting down on the boat waiting because you've got to be very patient when you're fishing and he wants to be there the moment that rod goes, which we see in the movie. So it could be that it's just something that he knows is going to give him just enough energy just to keep him going where he doesn't have to leave the boat. He doesn't have to leave his seat, but it's not big. It's not cumbersome. It's actually quite a practical little snack that he can keep in his pocket so that he can just be ready when that goes. And I think that might be a little bit of foreshadowing from the town hall to the fighting chair. What the brand of crackers? I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. Probably Quint's pretty good crackers. That's what we'll call them.
Is it a saltine? Is it a Ritz? Or, what's
God, what's the deal? Exactly. God, viewers, if you know
we
the answer to that
well
question,
we know what kind of beer he likes. We just don't know what kind of crackers he likes.
God, yeah, because that I tell you, viewers, if you know the answer to that, please let us know. I'm sure someone out there. 'Cause I think
Yes.
what we've got over 350,000 followers. Someone surely out there must know. So please, this is keeping Charlie up at night. This has been
Yeah.
preying on his mind for 50 years. Yeah.
Yes, I
Um,
need to
and
know
the
this.
we need to, well, I need to know now. I'm not going to sleep tonight. And the other question in terms of the fighting chair, we actually asked this question to the community because we were just like, what did actually happen? And
Oh,
it wasn't a poking fun at it. And there were some really interesting theories, like a lot of the people, because a lot of the community are fishermen or boat enthusiasts, so they kind of understand where the chair might have gone. And originally, the Orca was a boat called the Warlock, which was a Nova Scotian lobster vessel, and they got quite big, not hulls. I don't know what they're called, but basically they're the part underneath the boat that's quite big. So there's a likelihood that the chair, because it was sitting at the back of the boat, there's probably a latch where they could just pop it in underneath, almost like a car boot kind of thing, not too far
mm,
away from the engine or that. So that would probably make sense when you look at the physical geography of the vessel. But you're right, because 1 minute it's there, and the next minute it's not. And it's like, but then again, no, Quint did say that he saw one eat a rocking chair once, so maybe the shark snuck out on the boat and ate it without no one noticing.
that's my theory.
Mate,
The
brilliant.
I did have a third question.
Go
Do you
for it.
think
Go for it.
the key to the movie is when Brody pulls the wrong string and the tanks come out and Hooper tells him they'll blow? And do you think in Brody's mind that stayed in his mind? So when he saw one of the tanks floating, I'm gonna fucking
Yeah.
throw it in this thing's mouth and maybe he'll bite down on it and it'll explode. I don't think he had the rifle in mind at that
Mm.
time. It's just that's just another thing that
I think so.
writing.
I think so. Because the
Yeah,
thing about Brody that's very interesting is that he pays attention. He really does, and that's
pays
what makes him a
attention.
great. That's what makes him a great policeman. Because as soon as he realizes that this is a shark problem, what does he do? He goes. He starts reading up about sharks. We see that moment when he's reading the books. He's someone that studies. He's someone that pays attention. So when Hooper said that, I mean, it's obviously a really cool, one of the greatest foreshadowing moments in history. But then
Absolutely.
the shark is breaking through the cabin of the Orca. The ship is going down. He's looking around. What have I got? There's an air tank. Let's lob it in there. That might blow up if I get lucky. And that's all that it was. So you're absolutely right. The only thing that's missing from that moment is a voiceover from Hooper. When he just remembering back, you screw around with these tanks and they
Right.
blow up. So it's just like, so I think you're right. It's one of the all-time great foreshadowing moments, but it's just so spontaneous because the audience are going, yeah, the tank, lob it in there and just see what happens. And I can't take credit for this particular theory, but I think it's wonderful because it kind of comes back to what you were talking about, particularly around the tour, about how you're all kind of thrown into this situation and you just try and make the best of it. Charlie Sheen came up with this theory or pointed this out, and we're trying to get him on the series. So, Charlie, if you're listening, please get in touch. Um, he said that actually, when you look at the end of Jaws, all three of them kill the shark. You've got Hooper's tank, Quint's rifle, and Brody's shot. They all play a role in killing the shark. So it's not just Brody. And I was just like, I'd never thought about it like that before. That's actually very good. And again, even if your friends are gone, they can still help you in that moment by giving you
Hmm.
the rifle that you don't need. So again, I think we're just coming back to that point where it's not about a fish. There's so many different ways to look at this movie. This is why I can talk about it. And I've got so many more interviews to record, but every single one of these is going in a different direction and are making me see the movie in a different way. And it's just like, wow, it's amazing. And I think that for me is the reason why we're still talking about this 50 years later, because there's just so many different ways to look at this movie, whether it's through a different character, a different perspective. I did a fantastic interview a few years ago with a guy called Andre Gower, who was in the Monster Squad. Have you ever seen that?
I
One of
know.
my
Yeah,
all-time
I
favorite
know.
kids movies. He played the leader of the Monster Squad, and we were talking about Jaws, and he was saying it's a survival movie, but there are four people trying to survive,
Yeah, we know who
and
the
it's
first
just
one
like,
is.
what an epiphany, what an absolute epiphany. It's just like, he's absolutely right. The shark is just trying to
That's,
survive, like we all are. Charlie, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Now, I normally sign off, but what I'd like to do is I'd love to just leave you maybe with a few final words of wisdom, Jawsdom, whatever you want to call it, or final message to the fans.
if you're a Jaws fan, then you probably go deep, deep, deep into Jaws like I do. You don't just like this movie; you love this movie, and it's a movie that I watch every year. Never get tired of it. I don't care if it's on somewhere. I'll watch it and I'll recite it. Because that's the fun part about it. And it makes me happy to watch this movie. Different acts in the movie. I love the end of the movie too. I should say that last song when you see Hooper and Brody swimming to shore. I
Mm.
love that how he shot that, because you see the ocean and you see them getting back safely, only two of them.
Mm.
It's movie making like no other makes movies. So that's what I'm left with. And I think if you're a Jaws fan, you totally relate to what I'm talking about, It's an
Mm.
emotional ride.
Absolutely. Ah, what a perfect way to end. Uh,
Yeah.
Charlie, thank you so much for taking time out. I know how busy you are with the tour and everything. Please send out our love to the guys over at Pantera as well. We're big fans of those guys. Guys, I've been Ross for the Daily Jaws, speaking with Charlie Benante for the Jaws 50th anniversary series of interviews. Please stay tuned because we've got many more interviews to come. But for now, I'll drink to your legs and I'll bid you a fond farewell and adieu.
Hey, what did Jaws mean to you when you were like 9, 10 years old? Like, did it have an effect on you?
Well, I was 9, so anytime a horror movie would come out, it would depend on the rating or whether I could see it or not. And then Jaws had this massive reputation. The commercials were practically famous because of the soundtrack. Every kid in the school was talking about it. All your friends are talking about it. Some friends got to see it before other friends. So I was late in that regard because I had a bunch of friends who did see it and raved about it and built the horror mystique up a whole lot, which I love that. I love that kind of young-minded hype over a horror film. I liked it. And then when I did finally see the movie, not that much longer later, I loved it, because it's not just a horror movie. It's a freaking it's an action film. It's a well-rounded. Who did Spielberg? It's a fucking Spielberg movie. So you fall in love with all the characters. You identify with people, and then there's the obvious, the shark attacks and
Suspense.
but like just not to go too far off. Yeah, a lot of suspense. And the way it was shot was great for the time, clever and stuff like that. The opening scene with the girl going out in the night, swimming in the water, yeah, creepy as fuck. Just the thought of being in a body of water at night and not being able to see what's underneath you deep, deep, deep. That's a creepy feeling. I know it's probably called something phobia or whatever, but I got it for sure, man.
It affected you that way?
That way it affected me for sure. So, but I was gonna say, like Halloween, when I finally saw Halloween 1, after all that hype too, that's another hype movie.
Yeah, it's another hype.
I was surprised, like Jaws, and the lack of gore, the lack of blood, the lack of gore. From what everyone was telling me, I had a friend who didn't see the movie, and because we were going to see the movie, he started crying in the car. And I was like, what in God's green beard are you crying about? And he said, a friend of mine told me that the whole screen was covered in blood at one point. And I'm like, why are you crying? And I'm scared of seeing the whole screen covered in blood, man. So, all right, I was like, okay, I'm ready to see the whole screen. You never see a bloody screen, nothing like that. So, but you cannot deny a fucking Spielberg movie, man. The dude's a genius.
He tells a good story.
He tells a great story, and he builds characters that you care about instead of paint by numbers
So
characters.
the last thing I'll ask you, if the shark would have worked better, you think it would have changed the movie?
No, I thought the shark was fine.
But it didn't work.
Meaning,
It would have been in the movie way more than it was.
but they couldn't get the mechanics
Couldn't get
right.
it to work.
Oh.
So that's why it's in the movie for like 3 minutes, the whole thing.
They were trying to get it to be wriggly and move and stuff. Oh,
So
man.
because they didn't show the shark, do you think that added more fear?
You can, because
Imagination.
it's you know, like the famous old great movies used to do. You know, they would leave it to the imagination, even like, okay, we saw or we didn't see in Polanski's Rosemary's Baby. You never have to see the baby, you saw the eyes, and that was it. That's all you needed to see. So that's a little glimpse right there. So all we needed was little glimpses of this darn shark. He was huge. The scene with Richard Dreyfuss on the end of the boat where that thing's coming up on the deck is like, and you know what else? Here's another little spin on this. I used to work offshore on boats just like that, and we would cast a big net, and we'd be shrimping. But when you're on a sizable boat out in the Gulf of Mexico, dude, you're gonna pull up all kinds of sea life. One day we pulled up sharks all the time. Funny thing about sharks is they die like that. Once they're out of the water, they just die. Yeah. Dude, we pulled up a 12-foot shark onto the deck. They had tied its tail off. It was dying but still alive, and his jaws were they had to be this freaking big.
Wow.
They let him die, and one of the crew guys cut his jaws out and put him up on the main deck to sun rot, you know.
Like Quint.
I don't know what he did with them, but I'm sure they were so dangerous. I mean, you could point at them and come away bleeding. It was insane. Big old shark. So that was in my memory too.
Right.
You know, so.
That's cool. Not cool that it died, but cool that you had that experience.
I don't know, man. I hate that the sharks pass so quick. Crabs live forever though, man. And I always asked, hey, why aren't we crabbing? And you know who I was asking? My stepfather. That's another good movie. However, they do show violence in that film. My stepfather would say, we're shrimping.
Not crabbing.
Correct. You can either do one or two, but we must have pushed 10,000 pounds of awesome big blue crabs over.
It's funny you said that, crabbing or shrimping, because in the movie, Quint, the character Quint refers to as sharking.
Ah.
You know.
Yes, that's what. If that's what your main objective is to get, you are. I can see it. You'd be sharking.
But the movie, you think, stood the test of time to this day. People,
it's a great movie. It's a great movie. And okay, here's another thing. You know how sometimes modern sensibilities can look back at an old movie and say, that would never happen this way anymore. You know, we have this iPhone, we have all this technology. I don't see how it changes out on the water. It doesn't change. I mean,
you still have sharks, you still have water,
you could have superior weaponry, but you're gonna have a battle, and you know, not much else is gonna help you in the way of modernity, you know. I almost said Madonna-tree. Big Madonna fan. How's this interview,
Is that good, Dave?
He fell asleep.
He didn't have any film in the camera.
He's like, oh, y'all ready to go?
We're rolling it?
His hand starts cranking.
Yeah, we're good.
Awesome.
You want to cut?
That's it for today's deep dive into Jaws, the film that turned beaches into no-swim zones and created the summer blockbuster. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to follow, rate and review. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And remember, just when you thought it was safe to stop listening, there's plenty more episodes to come. Please be sure to check out the work of Minorities in Shark Sciences and also the Tourette's Association of America. That's it for now, guys, but I'll catch you next time. I'll drink to your legs.